video, the syntax of creating a sub procedure is using the sub keyword, the procedure name, and automatically by pressing enter, Microsoft would have closed that particular block by giving you end sub. And then within that block, you can put any statements. Like in this scenario, sub greeting, then you have message box hello, and basically end sub. So in order to test your particular sub procedure, you can come down in here and just simply click run sub or user form. By selecting that, automatically you see that right now, if I wanted to run this particular sub procedure, I can actually just run it and test it. You have to make sure that the cursor is located on that sub. If I click on the second sub and say run that, there's nothing is going on. But if I click on the first sub, my sub procedure, I've already pointed my mouse in there, click run, automatically you see the value will show because I'm just showing the variable that I've assigned in here. Since I've shown you within the demonstration how to declare variables, let's get into the right way of explaining variables. In order to declare a variable, first you have to understand what is a variable. A variable is a placeholder for a specific information. You need a temporary location within the memory in order to place something in it so you can access it throughout the program execution. There are different types of variables available in Access. Many types. Some of the types are listed in here, like type of a string in order to hold a text value, or integer, long, double, or single. You could hold number. Depends on the size of the number. You could choose one or the other. Currency is a specific number that is defined for more precisions. In other words, it has more accuracy for showing the dollar amount or pounds or anything. We call it the currency format. Then you might have a value that only wants to know yes or no, or 0 or 1, or on or off. For those scenarios, you don't want to occupy lots of memory. You just need a single bit to be on or off. So you use Boolean for that. And then finally, date and time, which really shows date. Now, here, in order to declare a variable, you could use the dim statement, which I've already shown you how to do it. Dim, and then you use the name of the variable and you type the string. The name of the variable is another trick by the time you're defining the variables. There is a Hungarian naming convention, which goes back to the old days. A gentleman in Microsoft a long time ago came up with an idea that is not a bad idea to specify the type of the variable at the beginning of the variable name in a lowercase format. If you are a C++ programmer, every C++ programmer uses that Hungarian naming convention. And why they call it Hungarian? Because the gentleman had a long last name and he was from Hungary. So they call it Hungarian guy. So it's a Hungarian naming convention. So we go with that. As you see here, we have str, lowercase, that refers to the string type. And then capital, the rest of the name would be lowercase. You identify the name of the variable, you concatenate it with the type of a variable together, and you type the variable in the 3-letter format, and basically that makes it a prefix, and basically you can find out, oh, okay, city is the type of a string, so by the time I'm using it, I know what to expect, I know how to convert. So that's kind of a cool way in order to refer to the variables. Now, at the same time, the naming convention is totally up to you as well. Naming convention for the variables is different from the Hungarian naming convention. You can combine the two. Naming convention, it really depends on the standard in the company. You can create it on your own. For example, Microsoft suggests that you should use intuitive naming convention. Like, for example, if you say a string city, we assume that you're going to hold the city name in there, not your dog's name. So think about it and make sure that the variables are being assigned correctly. If you're getting a variable that you want to hold the file name in it, it's not a bad idea to put file name. If you're getting a value that gets a last name, just put last name. It just makes sense, logical sense. Use the name that is supposed to hold the values. So in this scenario, there are some rules and regulations that you have to follow. The first character in any variable must be a letter. You cannot start the variable name with number. The variable name cannot contain more than 255 characters in VBA. So try to make it short. And as a matter of fact, longer variable names would be very difficult to read. So that's why we are combining uppercase and lowercase format in order to be able to read them. And also, don't use Visual Basic for application keywords. Like, for example, if, then, not. These are like keywords that we are using. Don't use the forbidden symbols like bang or exclamation point. We know it also has a bang. And also @ ampersand, $, and pound, because these are, again, keywords that are being used. Some of the prefixes that Microsoft uses it here, and if you use this specific naming convention, majority of programmers in today's business are using that also, if of course they are officially trained. Otherwise, forget about it. It's very difficult to see what they have done. Basically, you can go ahead and use any of these Boolean, or come up with your own naming convention if you don't like this. So these are some of the examples of variables. Like, for example, for the date, we use DT. Not necessarily has to be 3 letters. It could be any letter, but as long as you define the type for it, the currency, string, variant, Boolean, and so forth. Now, there is an option here. They call it option explicit. The option explicit enforces the declaration of a variable before using it. If you do not use option explicit, basically, you can use any variable. If you haven't declared it, at runtime, Microsoft chooses a variant data type for that. Let's take a look at this demonstration for a second. Right now, I have not set the option explicit. In here, in the second procedure, I can just basically say, message box, your variable. And if I run this particular variable in here, it says nothing. As you see, the your variable in here is basically defined as a type of variant. As a matter of fact, I can set the value of 2 and run that again. And as you see, it shows 2. I can actually change it to be a text format, hi there, and then run that again. You say hi there. So what is this type anyways? This variable type is variant, means could be anything. By default, it's going to set that up. Right now, if I put something in here, say option explicit, at the top, option explicit says, you cannot run this. What is the type of this variable? You have to tell me if it's a variant, you have to declare it's variant. So that way you're enforcing the type declaration, so you're not going to have any problem at runtime. Because if you do not specify the option explicit at the runtime, by the time you're converting 2 different variables together, you might lose the value. Like, for example, you want to add 2 numbers, like 10 plus 10. If they are a text type, you actually get 10, 10 rather than 20. So it's important to make sure what type you're dealing with. So this video in here, part of your particular lesson, it actually puts things together again. I'll give you some time to take a look at this video.